It's Shannon.
Hello, and welcome to Keeping It Real with Shannon Live.
It's Shannon.
Because you don't know how it's going to turn out.
It's Shannon. It's Shannon.
My kids empowered me to get out.
What's going on with this remote learning in the midst of COVID?
Keeping it real.
Working for different elected officials, learning and understanding how to put your community first.
Hi, welcome to Keeping It Real with Shannon. Thank you for joining us tonight. Hello there, Dr. Vanessa. How you doing?
Hey, Lottie, I'm great. Hanging in there.
Which side of the country are you on? Are you in New York now? Or are you in some other country someplace?
Well, you know I'm leaving next week, so you'll be missing me for 4 months. Time of year.
Yes, well, you know what? We're excited about the show. We're not excited about talking about what we're going to talk about with all of this violence, gun violence, stabbing, everything that's going on now, and it's just looked like there's no end to anything that's happening.
Mhm.
But our two guests tonight is going to talk to us about some of the work that they do with the young people. And our first guest we have on is Pastor Rashad Raymond Moore. He's the pastor at First Baptist, I'll say the famous First Baptist Church of Crown Heights. And he lives in Brooklyn. And our second guest is Seaon Moore. Seaon is a licensed FID development instructor. And his program is Thought Patterns. And he works with young people, teaching them chess. They learn discipline by teaching them chess. So I am so excited to have both of you on tonight to talk about our topic. And you both have worked with young people for a while. And Pastor, we know about your work over at Crown Heights First Baptist Church. There's a lot that goes on at your church over there. And our topic was tonight is about the violence or people that angry. Because sometimes when I think about it, with all of this, shooting and stabbing, like when people get in arguments or have disagreements, are you that angry that you feel you have to take someone's life? Because in the day, we didn't pull out no guns and knives and stuff. We would just fight. You know what I'm saying? I remember when I used to fight, I'd grease my face up with some Vaseline and I'm ready to go. But now it's like you can't even talk to anyone or step on their toe about they pulling out a knife or a gun and want to shoot you or stab you. So it's like people just have lost their mind or they going crazy. What is it?
Want me to start?
Just jump on in.
Yeah. So I would say that one of the reasons why people pick up guns is because it gives a sense of power. It gives a sense of control. And so if you're in a world where you feel like you don't control anything else in life, you think by carrying that gun, it gives you some sense of power. Another thing I'm thinking with gun violence amongst young people is I think that some of that gun violence gives them a sense of purpose. That I may not have anything else going for me. I may not play an instrument. I may not be in school right now. I may not have a purpose or a talent or some kind of trade or skill. And so at the end of the day, when I don't have anything else to do, I pick up a gun. And I think this culture of violence is also giving people a sense of purpose. And so with some of our younger people, some of the turf or some of the violence that we've seen, like in Crown Heights, some of this gun violence, once you pick up a gun, that is in response to the fact that you dissed me on a rap video on Instagram. Mm-hmm. So we have built an entire culture around violence because it feeds a sense of purpose. And what human beings need more than anything else is a sense of belonging. I need to know that I belong to somebody. I need a sense of self-esteem. I need to feel good about myself. And then I also need a sense of purpose. I have to find a reason to wake up in the morning. And if I don't have a reason to wake up in the morning, then that becomes nihilism. And so if me being angry with you gives me a reason to wake up in the morning and post on Instagram, then I'm going to do that. But I'm going to tell you this one thing before I be quiet. I am a hope dealer. I deal hope. That is my job, to deal hope. I still believe that there are possibilities. And I think that if we can give young people a sense of belonging, if we outside of a game, and if we can give them a sense of purpose, I believe some of this gun violence will be cut. I really do believe it.
But Pastor, wouldn't that also start with because you're first born and then you grow up into an adult? You know, a lot of this starts at home. Of said, not that you're gonna turn out exactly how your parents wanted to raise you or raise you or whatever. You do the best you can as a parent, but coming up as a young person, that's when you start finding out like where you should belong, or I know everybody don't do that, but I'm just saying a lot of it to me starts at home.
Now, what I also do, and I think that it's important for church folk to do this, is that oftentimes what we do is we have made young people and these teenagers, we have made them the scapegoat for all of the issues in the community. I believe that this gun violence is connected directly, it's directly correlated to poverty. Gun violence is the highest in communities where poverty is the highest. When poverty comes down, gun violence comes down. When you put, I have a friend who works in St. Louis who did work to realize that if a black man makes at least $50,000 a year, he is least likely to pick up a gun. If you got a job that you can go to every day, a 9 to 5, you don't have time to shoot anybody. But another part is this, I'm not on the tangent. Another part of this is gun violence is also high in communities where school budgets have been cut.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and some of the things that we thought didn't make a difference made a big difference. After school programs made a big difference. But when you cut a school budget and students don't have extracurricular activities, they don't have basketball teams, they don't have the band, they have nothing to do after school. And most of these crimes happen when? After school.
So,
And so let's not just talk about the teenagers, let's also talk about the poverty. Poverty that snatches away opportunities to find your purpose.
To echo on what the pastor just said, 100% agree with him. If the kids don't have anything to hold on to, or not even kids, anyone, we're talking about gun violence, this is something that affects everyone of all ages. And if they don't have anything to hold on to, it's easier for them to make these decisions to let it all go. I see it in teaching chess all the time. A student might feel like, I have no chance to win. You know exactly what they do. All they care about is taking other pieces. They start sacrificing. They start giving up. It's almost 8 different ways they can draw the game. You know, they don't even think of that option anymore because it was almost like, I can't win. I don't care. So imagine that same response in a life situation with somebody. Then you could start understanding, Shannon, as 4 people who are saying, how can somebody think like that? We're not playing. We're playing with all our pieces on the board. They feel like they don't have any pieces left. So now they're making decisions from that perspective. So from our perspective of all these pieces, and we might have even extra more on the side, we have to find ways to make them feel like they have pieces on the board. They have an opportunity to be heard, felt, and belong, like the Reverend said, without it being something so sensationalized as gun violence, or as a fight, or as a video, or a song, you know. And the desensitizing of violence, period, in gaming, and that's why I stick to chess as a core, because chess is a game where I have to tell my kids, you capture pieces. They was like, oh, I killed this piece. I killed that piece. No, you capture pieces. We don't kill pieces in chess, okay? And that showed me to the level that the idea of winning in a game was killing. Like, it wasn't even about how many points, like that, how we grew up. It was always about points. And I'm teaching the kids, this piece is worth this point. And it was about, oh, I killed this many pieces. They didn't even care the value of the pieces that they killed. It was about how many they killed.
But I understand both points coming from what you said, and I have seen that with my own eyes and everything. But it's also not just people that's in poverty, because you got young people killing each other that come from good homes. They ain't starving for nothing. They ain't missing nothing. I don't know what happens to them when they get out there, or what goes through their mind. Maybe it's just getting up with the wrong kids or whatever, because other people have come from poverty or whatever, but they're not killing anybody.
But I think some of the things that's added to that, when we think about the things that are in the marginalized, disproportionate communities, and these are the particular Black and Brown communities, when we have structures and structural racism and things that are embedded in these communities that brings unlimited resources. And this is what happens. You could come from a well-to-do family, but then what happens when that child gets out the house, when they're around certain kids that don't have as much, that may not have a two-parent household, they start they start acclimating themselves to different type of behaviors and cultures of which we talk about. So there's a lot of things that stem in the root, the root, the stemming from these communities where there's limited resources, lack of resources thereof, lack of accessibility to resources. Like we said, there's no more after school programs. There's not much summer job, youth job. It's limited resources out there. And just listen, overall, if we even just to think further than that, look at the things that happen in other communities not looking like these marginalized portion of the community, and look how fast it first becomes, it's considered called a crisis. Look how much resources gets added to those communities, and look how now they tackle those particular things that happen in those communities. It's a whole big thing when we talk about racism, structural things that's already embedded in the fabric of this country.
Yes, you are absolutely right. And I'm gonna go back to what I've always said. And every time we have this argument, I'm gonna go right back to what I said before. Yes, these things are missing in our community. But when we go to the people in the community to try to get them to come out to fight for their community, get the resources in their community, when we have the meeting, empty seats are all over the auditorium.
Yes,
because they don't come out and fight for the after school program.
Yeah, but
And I'm not making this up because I work for the Board of Ed, so I know what goes on there and how you get these programs and stuff like that. And when we would try to get the program and stuff in the schools and stuff like that, you couldn't get the parents to come out to the meeting.
A lot of these parents and people are so complacent. They so conditioned to live in generational debt. This is a normalcy for them. This is normal for them. Okay, so how do we?
Okay, then. So what I'm saying is, then what do we do? What some specific stuff that we can do? Because people hear us talking and we saying what it is, what the problem is. What can we tell people that you need to be doing to help your children and the children in the community, or get stuff in your community and resources that you need?
So 3 things. The first thing I want to say is that I think we have a way of looking at history through rose-colored glasses. Mm-hmm. There may be a slight increase in violence now, but this is not the first time that violence has been run amok in places like New York.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Pastor, hold that thought. Don't forget what you were getting ready to say. We're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back.
All right.
It's Shannon. It's Shannon.
911, where's your emergency?
Everyone's on their way. What happened? Your friend's not breathing. You're dead? Please get my mom and dad. Oh my God.
Hi, if you're just joining us, we're talking to Pastor Moore from Crown Heights, First Baptist Church of Crown Heights, and Mr. Seaon Moore from Thought Patterns. Pastor, sorry to interrupt you before we was getting ready to go to break.
No. You were asking a great question about, I hear your, I don't call it pessimism, but I hear your concern about, it seems like we're like, going in circles. And what can we do? Like, what are the tangibles? Well, first thing I would say is that this is not like the first time that we have dealt with violence in Brooklyn, right? So people are like, oh, gun violence is up. I remember when I was younger, and they weren't shooting, but I remember when people would walk down the street and just get slashed in the face. I don't know if people remember that back in the 90s. Mm-hmm. You had a whole long line on the side of their face because they were just getting slapped. So we've always had like pockets of violence. The second thing is to abandon assumptions, right? You say like when the parents don't show up. We're also dealing, as a pastor, I realized that one of the best things to do is abandon the assumptions, right? You assume things, you make an ass out of you and me, right? Excuse my language. But you're dealing with, you ask why parents don't show up. One, you're dealing with a younger generation of parents who may not know how, change happens. But also, as Dr. Said, we are also dealing with people who have lost hope. Hopelessness is real. And so you've got to do even more work every week and every day of trying to inspire that hope. And the best way to inspire that hope is by celebrating the work that's already on the ground. So it may look like the whole community doesn't care, but there are people on the ground. There are former gang members who are on the ground who are actually quelling some of the beef between some of these teenagers. And my last point, because I don't want to talk too much, it takes a special person. It takes a special person to come down and to talk to teenagers as opposed to talk at them or talk about them. So when I was at that dinner today, I'm 32. Most of the brothers at the table were like 17, 18. And in that moment, I realized they live a world that's totally different from me. With my degrees and all of that and my position, all of that, they live in a world that's totally different from me. And so as a pastor, I'm trying to work to make sure that we can bridge the gap. Because sometimes it's easier to join a gang than it is to join a church.
That's what I'm saying, Pastor. So what do we need to be telling people in the community? Like you said, there are some people on the ground that's really working.
Yeah.
But I'm saying for us to have to change what we keep saying that's happening and why it's happening. What do we really need to be doing? Now, one thing I know, like you said, that you went to the meeting and you met with the two gang people and you talked to them and, try to convince them that there is another world out there and we need to come together. I know we need to be doing more talking, but how do we do this? How do we do this so we're not just going around in circles, and continuously doing this? I know with the resources in the community and stuff like that, I always try to tell people that, when voting comes, you have to go out and vote. So this way you can you have more opportunity to fight and to get stuff in your community and stuff. They don't realize how important voting is because you can get more stuff in your community and stuff like that. Because politicians look at who votes for them. That's how that works and everything. And they don't seem to understand that that's how that works.
Well, how would they understand that? Who's explaining that to them? What programs or what organizations is taking time to explain these things?
There's a lot of organization that talks about voting. And every time it's time to vote every year, people start talking about voting.
Right, benefits of voting. As soon as you start talking about voting, it's like when somebody see a jury duty letter. It's just like, I know the process, I heard it, but it doesn't directly make me feel excited or want to be a part of it or even care about it like I should. So maybe more emphasis should be put on the building of true understanding. How does change really happen? To explain to a parent that you have more power than I do in your school system to write a letter and where that letter, who to write it to and how to follow up on it and what to expect. Exposure in some sense is what we ultimately need. We need examples too. And without the examples of this working, it's hard to motivate people to really change. And especially like Pastor said, we have a lot of people who feel hopeless. And there's a lot of reasons why they feel
it's not that people don't be talking to people, Seaon. I'm not even going to talk about other people. I can only speak for myself and the experience that I have seen. I'm telling you what I see with my eyes and my mouth. You talk to them, you explain to them what it is, why is it important? Just like when I used to talk to the parents, like, this is the reason it's important, because you're fighting for your child. And you are talking and talking until you didn't turn another shade color or whatever. But like Pastor says, we can't give up hope. We got to keep talking. So being that I'm the type of person, I'm going to keep talking regardless, because I talk anyway. As you see that, I'm going to keep talking. I'm just saying sometimes when you think about it, it's like, what do we just keep? How many times do you have to tell somebody? And particularly if you explain in the voting process to somebody, they know what it is, but then they'll sit there and turn around and say, well, it doesn't matter because they're not going to do anything anyway.
I think it's about organizing. I mean, you can't, and the thing is, we think, think about it. And I'll say this, the meeting that I went to tonight with the two groups was actually organized by my council member, Crystal Hudson. So if the pastors are not doing the work of bringing gangs together, if, it's people like Crystal Hudson who's showing us a different kind of political engagement. Other part is, we've got to organize as a community. I think that's what organizing is about, the church, the unions, all of that. Because what happens is we think that the burden of social change is on the elected official. And while I might work with an elected official, once they out of office or they don't get reelected, they out.
No. It's on the community.
And so
the community need to hold these politicians accountable. There's no accountability. They come in.
No, people say accountability, and I got that point. Other part that you said, what can we do? We've also got to sit down and talk about what it is that we want. We said hold the elected official accountable. When you go to a meeting, you need to go to a meeting with an agenda and demands. We go to elected officials with questions. We need to go to them. This is the
You are absolutely right, Pastor. I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that, Pastor. When we go to a meeting, we need to come with an agenda. The problem is getting to the meeting. That's what I keep saying. For them to get to the meeting so we can do the agenda.
Yeah, but those agendas should not only be tabled during that term for that politicians in office. It needs to be a continuance. People still need to be engaged and be involved.
Well, see, that's why I say it's like Pastor said with the organization. It's the organizations in the community. It's the churches in the community. It's any people that have some kind of authority in the community to come together, like he said, and organize. And that way, where the politicians, we got to hold them accountable because we definitely need to hold them accountable. But even when they're out of office, we can still go after the new person who comes to take their place. Because we already put an agenda together.
We got to hold them accountable. But some of our, I don't want to go there. I'm in Crown Heights. We want to hold them accountable when other communities go with demands. This is what we want. And it's not accountability. We hold you accountable once we have made the demands. But it takes time for us to come together and think about what it is that you really want.
So ultimately, we're talking about building a community structure that's lasting. Right?
Yes.
And that's not new.
Yes.
All right. Yes. And that's something we've been talking about also for years and trying for years. So what new tactics would I suggest that we try? With that community, it has to be, the policing has to be readjusted. In my eyes, we're dealing with kids, dealing with on the ground. I have a 25-year-old brother who's at the cusp of his life of picking a lot of big decisions. How he gonna choose to be a man? What kind of man? And I believe policing does play a big part in it. It's a negative connotation overall, and it's ultimately there's something that's in place to be a safety mechanism. Imagine living a life where you never even think of that as an option. You understand? And that kind of disconnect leads to people wanting to resolve problems on their own and resolve problems the way that they're not even thinking about the law because they don't even call the law. And so that kind of, when I say a lasting community, it pulls into everything everybody was saying, that we need to ultimately have the older people or the people who are the go-getters and the people that's shaking in the community stick together, create a community where they are a unit, they are a gang. It should be something that they're a gang. I should feel more comfortable going to my local pastor and say, hey, I just had, why should I have to meet Reverend Moore, even though we have the same last name, no relation? Why would I have to meet him on your show to make any kind of real connection with a pastor? It should be something that is almost automatic. Hey, you're a young man, got a business that's geared around my community. I want to talk to you. I want to see you. And that's not there. We need to put more inference on that then. And then maybe we have the parents who see the pastor that they know and the young chess coach that they know talking all the time, always together, doing things together. Now the coming out is 2 levels of coming out now, right? We got two.
But that would be at community meetings. That would be at community meetings.
But now they got
that
two people that's going to support them when they go to that community.
Well,
But
yeah.
how do we
That's
get
what I'm
to
saying.
the meetings? How do we go to
Bring
where
that
people
agenda.
congregate to bring them to the table?
I didn't. I'm sorry, Miss
Where
Vanessa.
do we go to? Where do we go to? Where do we go with? Where do people congregate so we can bring them to the table?
But what the beauty of us all coming together is all those different platforms going to come. The Reverend probably have a strong social media platform with his strong community outreach programs. I might have a strong in the school platform, or not platform, but you get what I'm saying, influence that I can bring that together now. And is the mixing of these different worlds that we were ultimately talking about as
But
well.
Seaon, the way that would work is just like you said, and just like Pastor said, just like he said about the councilman brought this meeting together with the game. That would be the same thing is the people in the community, the politicians, the pastors, people like your organization, like you said, we would have a meeting, an ongoing meeting, not just once a year or twice a year or something like that. Ongoing where you are talking to each other, bringing people together, and maybe talking to the people in that way, maybe would give them some kind of hope and know that things can change if we come together. Look, we run out of time, but I need y'all to stay around about 5 or 10 minutes because I have to finish my last questions to the pastor and you. So we're going to wrap up this part of the show, and then we're going to come back with the after show. So we want to thank everybody for joining us tonight for this part of the show. And if you want to see the after show, you can always go to our Facebook page and YouTube page, and you can watch us from there. So we want to thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you, Seaon, and thank you, Pastor. And as always, we'll see y'all next time.
Today's show is sponsored by Abu's Bakery. If you have a sweet tooth, stop by Abu's Bakery for some delicious cakes and pies.
Do you like beautiful pictures for your home or your office? Then stop by Space Rock Gallery. They have a large selection of pictures from around the world.
It's Shannon. It's Shannon. It's Shannon. It's Shannon. It's Shannon. Keeping it real. It's Shannon. It's Shannon. It's Shannon.
Hi, we're back for our after show. Thank you, Pastor Moore and Mr. Moore, Seaon, for staying a few minutes so we can finish our hot conversation because, I try not to get excited and everything, but sometimes I just have to get excited because it's like, it's just, for me, it's like a repeat. And I know all my 40 years of working with the community, being involved with the community, talking to people, it's like I'm just still going around in this circuit, and it has gotten worse about people coming together. It seems like we just have a problem getting people to come together because, like the meeting that you was talking about earlier with Pastor C, we could have those type of meetings. That could be set up through the churches. There's an organization. I don't know if they still in existence. I think it was the clergy organization. Isn't there a clergy of all pastors? I think they had it in Brooklyn here.
African American clergy and elected
Clergy,
officials.
right. So even if all the pastors come together with their churches, and when we get the organizations from some of the organization that works with young people and stuff, and get them to come and do a sit down meeting with young people, just have forums for young people to come to, and they can hear different adults talking. They can see positive role models of what people are doing and what's going on. And I think that may also give some incentive too, and let them know that, like you said, a pastor before with the meeting you had, that there is another world out there. There's another world that these young people don't even know exists. They have never been out of the borough or off their block before.
We need to give them more to hold on to as well. That's why these programs are essentially important. We need more programs, more enrichment programs, different kinds of programs. I'm not only a person that preaches chess. I want cooking programs. I want fencing programs. I want fine arts programs, violin. Why not? There's just so many other skill sets out there that we can imbue in our community for not only children but retirees, people who's looking for a job, people who are just out of school. There's a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons in an overcrowded community, underfunded and underserved. Can you imagine what's going to happen if we don't start? Like I said to a friend today, we should start. We live in a technology world. Why is there no platform like I can meet Reverend Moore on and Dr. Vanessa and Miss Shannon on, because we're part, just like everybody's a part of Instagram. It's almost like we got to go to those avenues just to get to the community, but we can set up a platform for us, for the like-minded people in our area, and then we can start inviting them to our platform.
But you know what's so sad about that? I'm not about that. It's a good thing. But you know what's so sad about all these things? That none of these things are being incorporated in the schools, in the board of education, life experiences, things, everyday things that they see, that everyone see and follow on the news. Violence, I'm sure, is not probably really talked about in school. And my thing with that is that these are the systems that are in place, that are working how they're designed to work. And I'll continue to say that. These are systems in place that are working how they are designed to work.
I would say this about education. It's a good training for life in so many ways, but the navigational skills you need to have to understand where you fit in is something that is going to be remarkable. As much as you feel about education and what you experience, you still get that confidence that, hey, I survived it though. I got through it. I navigated it. I mastered what I needed to master to become Dr. Vanessa. Even though you might not, I don't know, but you might not truly believe in the whole system as it's set up. You know you was able to navigate it. So maybe we should start with the community programs, building our own sense of education and our own sense of know-how. But to try to debunk the whole system that's already there is a waste of time. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we waste our time trying to fight a fight that is not even part of the bigger picture. We can do our own thing. We see it in so many other communities. I see it in so many other regions. And I know that we have the monetary capacity to do it and promote ourselves in the same way. And I just wonder, what is that light switch to make it something? Maybe it is also leaning on these popular entertainers and people who have the influence, not only to influence, but to say, hey, we are the direct people who pushed you there. Let's get some of that back. I know it sounds greedy in a way, but money helps. It doesn't solve everything, but it helps. And we almost let them get away. They sing songs, they come do videos in these areas and kind of promote the same thing we're trying to kill. But even when they give back, they don't even promote it. I want to know. I want to know where I can go and get Jay-Z, get my kid into a camp that Jay-Z is promoting. I almost hear about it afterwards. You know, we need to.
It's research. You know, we don't. Not everybody, but a lot of us do not take the time to find out where something is taking place at, or to find out what's going on. You know, sometimes you have to dig for stuff. You have to look up the stuff yourself. Sometimes you just can't wait for everybody, you know, like to come and tell you what you need to be doing. And that's another lacking, is because we won't go and do the research of what we need to do. Because just like you was talking about programs and stuff, there's money out there to do programs. I mean, Dr. Vest and them do grant writing and all that kind of stuff, you know, to get programs and stuff. That's the things that we're going to have to start looking out for the kids ourselves. But Pastor, I want to know from you, what was the change or morale when the meeting had finished?
Well, I had to leave early because I had to be on the talk show with you all. But it was the beginning of a conversation. And so four things I want to say. First one is, You say, well, we should get all these clergy together to have a large gathering meeting. One thing about teenagers that's very difficult is that they can see through BS. And so I think sometimes pastors, think that I'm going to show up with a clergy collar and a cross tucked in my shirt, and I'm going to save the community. That's not going to work, right? So I think two things. One is you start local and you start small. I think that what saves people, I'm a pastor now, is relationships. That if I have a mentor who believes in me, if I got Brother Seaon who believes in me, who's checking on me, then I'm least likely to want to disappoint him. And so you can have these large gatherings and these conferences about curbing gun violence, but at the end of the day, if I don't have like this relationship with somebody who's going to hold me accountable, who's going to give me that sense of self-esteem, it's not going to make a difference. The second one is don't despise small beginnings. Like, and the thing about these gatherings, and I like that idea, is I'm talking about Crystal Hudson again. Crystal Hudson started bringing these groups together. And like Brother Seaon said, without these meetings, we don't know what is actually happening on the ground. So we say it's not happening in the community. We don't know what people are doing on the ground. And so instead of me, and this is what Black folk got to learn how to do, is instead of me trying to start a whole nother organization, why can't I humble myself and support the work that you are already doing on the ground? Now, I know that as me, who I'm standing here and I'm the pastor, I may not be the right person to walk up and be like, and to interrupt, gang violence. But I might have to stand in the shadows of somebody who's been in a gang, who's been incarcerated, who can talk more street than I can talk. But I got to let my ego go. There's no need for them to know who I am when I can support the work of another organization. So that's what I'm going to say right there.
Well, wouldn't that be the same as what we were saying earlier, what Seaon was saying earlier about we start local and work in setting up something for the people in the community, because it's, even though when you come in, just like you said about talking to someone else, like I know this other guy that's in Harlem. I'm trying to think of his name right now. He was in prison. He came out and he worked with young people, doing prevention with them, and trying to help them get jobs and things like that. We had him on the show. His name is escaping me right now. But even with people like him to partner with his organization, this is what I'm saying, partner with people who already has been working with the young people who are doing these different things and stuff like that. What I'm saying is it don't have to be no whole a big congregation of a farmer. I'm
tired of going to clergy breakfasts and eating eggs.
No, I'm not talking about going to the clergy breakfast. I'm not talking about going to the breakfast. I don't say a breakfast. I said just like you went to the meeting today and they was bringing the people who causing trouble. They bring them together in the same room. Now the people we are talking about is not necessarily gang members, but we were talking about young people who don't have hope and they think that they can't do anything for themselves, or they think they're not worthy. Even if you were talking to 20 people, it don't take a whole bunch of people, because them 20, once they get it, then they can be talking to another 20. So it's going to take everybody to learn.
But sometimes, Lana, you have organizations that are working in silos, right? And that's when you have things and resources and grants that come in when they work in silos instead of communities that have these same problems. They can band together and apply for these grants, create a curriculum, reach out to the youth, because one community is not that different, is not that far from another, and this is how we see the crime just transition throughout the city. But a lot of individual organizations, they work in silos. You can have something in one community and in the community next door could be doing the same work. Nobody knows what the other one's doing.
I got just one more point that I got to get in. Other part is we talked about talking. I think the most important lesson I took away from the meeting tonight was having a conversation, because these are young brothers who I would have never talked to in the street. We just live in two totally different worlds. But as I was looking at them, Sister Shannon, I kept saying, they're babies. They 17. When the brother was like, can I get a plate to go? I was like, this kid is so young. He the head of the group, and he's so busy trying to get a plate to go. And when I introduced myself, he said, "I want to come to church," and I'm like, "Wow!" Like, and so a part of what I want to tell, I try to tell people all the time is, we have allowed the media to color the way we see our brothers and sisters, because you think they're gangbangers, and we don't even get the chance to see. He's 17 years old. He think he grown. He think he a grown man. He didn't realize he's only 7. He can't even drink alcohol, right? He's only 17. And so I've had to push myself to be like, I can't be afraid of him.
Exactly.
And what you also got to do with young people is 2 things. One is we try to build all of these programs for them without even thinking about what is it that they want to do.
Another thing,
you got to give them time to talk. And you also got to you have to be okay with the fact that their way of communicating is totally different. So we're at the table. I mean, we're supposed to be at dinner, everybody on their phone, right? But you also realize that for some of them, sitting at a table eating is new. I could tell it was totally new for them. And the only way they know how to communicate is through their phones. And then their phones also serve as a way to hide, because then I can prevent myself from. We lived through a pandemic. Some people had to get used to talking to people in person again.
And that's the thing right there, is that, and I feel like you said, I don't think we should be scared of our young people. But see, a lot of the people are afraid of the young people, and they're too afraid to say something to them, because when you see them saying things or talking the way they're not supposed to be talking, and we're afraid to say anything to them, because I know when I say something to young people, when I hear them calling the girlfriends bitches and whores, and they talking, and I'll say, well, who are you talking about? They be on the street. I pass them on the street, and they talking on the corner, and you hear them saying stuff. And I said to a group one day, there was about 4 of them, and I was like, I said, I could hear y'all's conversation. Who you talking about? Who you calling a hoe and a bitch? Like that. They was like, oh, miss, that's just the way we talk. We was talking about, our women and stuff. So I said, well, hold up. That's not the way you talk about women. I said, I'm a woman myself. Your mother is a woman. Your aunt's a woman. So are you calling your mother a hoe and a bitch or whatever? This is not how we talk. You don't supposed to talk like that. You a nice looking young man. You handsome. Why are you out here talking this way about women and stuff like that?
I got this one more example, then I'm done. I was at another meeting the other day. It was an all-male meeting. It was an all-male Bible study. And there were some young guys there in the middle of the Bible study. This guy just literally fell asleep. And they were so totally disengaged. And in my mind, I'm saying, they so rude, so disrespectful, so they young. And I was amazed how the conversation shifted when the person who was leading the Bible study, instead of talking to them or talking at them, he started asking them questions, right? It was about absent fathers, right? And it was the question was, so how do you feel about your, do you have a relationship with your father? And what I realized 2 things. One is, especially Black men, we are slow to speak. We internalize a whole lot of stuff, right?
Yes.
It takes us a long time to warm up. And a lot of us, we're not even used to being asked questions. And so we totally tuned out. And so what I loved about this Bible study was that the presenter took the time to at least address them. And when they finally started talking, he was like, wow, you had all of that locked up. And you would actually listen. I thought you were asleep. You seem disengaged. But as adults, as older people, we get offended because we think they're not listening, they don't care.
Right.
We interpret it as them being lackadaisical, when it takes a lot. I'm a preacher. I think about the man from the tombs, right? The man, Jesus met the man who was living in the graveyard. It takes time for you to take them grave clothes off. He got to get his mind right. And so that resurrection work is more intricate than we think.
Right.
Just putting a program in with the Boys and Girls Club and think it's going to change things. It takes time. It takes being disappointed. Sometimes the program may not work. Sometimes they may not show up. But resurrection work means that you just can't give up. Because I still believe that there's hope on an early Sunday morning. I do.
In terms of gun violence, also, I think from being a person who's been directly close to it in certain aspects, being involved with family members and such and people that I know for years and they being affected by it, there's a lack in grief counseling. We need different forms of grief counseling. They can't just rely on somebody saying, go to the church. We
Right.
need different forms of grief counseling.
Right.
The effect of grief don't only affect the mom who just lost the child, but the child that's still there watching the mom go through it, building up that anger, that tenacity to say, next time I get a chance, I'm gonna. And we still wondering, how can they think like that? We don't know what they've been through, what they and that's not always the excuse, but it's also obviously a part of the problem. Grief counseling and behavioral management is something that needs to be pushed in our community in a way that can be taken in by them as in the same sense. You can't just say, "Oh, we providing it," and they need to show up. No, I watched a mom, one of the strongest ladies I ever known in my neighborhood, lose a child, and that was the weakest time I've ever seen that lady. And because I knew how strong she was and how weak she was, it made me cry. Just that comparison of how much it took from her. No answers to her about why her child was taken away because her child wasn't involved in anything leading to gun. The child had so much going on in their life, and it's just echoing the story that I started to realize how many times I watched it on the news and who's doing grief counseling for them because I had no answers for this mom. I had no direct. And you said also you were saying earlier about people need to go and find. I also have the reality of knowing that we have to make it also easy to find as well. Why? Because I have parents who tell me when I say, "Oh, I'm offering chess and I'm giving this and I'm doing that," and they could do this. They say, "Yeah, but I also got 3 other kids that go to 2 other schools, and I have a job that I got to work to this time, and I got a sick mom or an aunt that a lot of other things that tie into why that information will never go. Not that the person don't want to, they're too tired, Miss Shannon. They don't have. So we, like I said again, that group. That's why I said even a platform that is known to. Maybe they too tired, but they can go look on the platform to see different flyers in the community about what's going on. Now that will inspire them to get out. Let me go. Let me take my child.
Well, Seaon, let me tell you, like I said, I don't speak with my own eyes and what I've seen, right? What I'm saying is what you are saying is absolutely right. I always have said to people, not just people with children, family, is that we have to go back to the village. I tell parents that all the time. You have to get a village here. You have kids. You can't do everything. So if you too tired to go to the meeting at the school, then you ask the other parent to take whoever needs to go to the meeting or whatever. But nobody wants to get the village together and work with each other. Everybody wants to do their own thing. If I can't go somewhere, I tell my neighbor, could you bring me back the information or could you take my daughter with you or whatever, to whatever meeting they have to go to, because everybody is trying to survive. That's why we need the village to come together. So even the village people, if I speak to my neighbor's children and if I see them out in the street doing something they don't have anything to do and I speak to them and discipline them, they turn around and get angry with me talking about why am I saying something to their child? So what do you don't even know what to do anymore. Then if you don't do something and something happened to them, oh, you standing right there and you didn't say anything and this happened to my child. This is what we're missing. We should be able to discipline your children if we're trying to help save them as well. So it all ties, as far as I'm concerned, it all ties in together because we need to learn how to help each other get through what we have to get through. Because we can't be everywhere 24/7. We can't.
But creating these common spaces will allow people to be able to meet, greet, and conform to each other easier. I grew up in an era where race and culture wasn't I felt it wasn't that big because I had parents I would get dropped at my neighbor house who's Spanish and we didn't have these I would say tumultuous relationships based on these situations, and people were even able to conform easier. But then again, we did live in a community where people spend more time at the corner store. People had more time and at the community centers and at picking up their kids from the daycare centers and the stuff that we used to have, and they can conform more and talk now. Meeting a parent at a bus stop real quick while it's cold is going to be hard to build those things, especially when the bus stop is not being ran in a way that supports the parents correctly, right? They late, they're not coming on time, they having issues on the bus. I don't got time to talk to you, my kid. You know, we need the community to be a place where they can feel safe and have a sense of control. It's going to go back to control, especially in these kind of communities we're talking about, where people feel
You're
no
absolutely
control
right.
and feel overworked with no control.
Right. Well, look, we're not gonna save everybody tonight. I don't know what's gonna happen. Keep in mind what Pastor said. We're gonna keep hope alive. We're gonna do that.
Got to keep hope alive.
We're gonna try, not try. We're gonna stop being afraid of our young people and talk to them more. Whether it's in a forum, whether it's separately, whether it's one-on-one or what. And I think we just have to let them know that they can do something if they put the effort to do it. Because they have to learn how to motivate themselves.
Right.
You know, because when people are motivated, you don't have to go through all of that with someone that's motivated. So someone that's not motivated, it's hard to even talk to them to get them motivated, because it's just like they don't want to do anything, but we still have to keep talking to them. We have to try to build their self-esteem. And just like with the gangs that we was talking about, because I was telling you earlier, you know, my first guest, when I first started my show, I interviewed King Tone, the big time gang leader of the Latin Kings. And when I went to his meeting and I saw all those 400 and some young people there, and you know, it just shocked me. I nearly passed out when I walked in, because I couldn't believe that there was this many young people out there involved in gangs. So then when I talked to a few of the young girls that was there, because the girls was there also, and like, you know, asking them, why would you want to be a part of this? You know, why are you here instead of home? You know, and it was like, well, you know, they look out for me. You know, they my family now. You know, this is what you saying. Like, you don't have a family, you have a family. But it was just that, I don't know. It was just strange and really a bad feeling, you know, to talk to the young people and to see that that's what they was thinking, that this is all okay, what they are doing and everything, you know. But I don't, you know, I don't know. Like Pastor said, I guess we just keep going. We keep talking, we keep trying, and we just try to convince people. Not that some of the people are older. We need to convince them as well. We got to talk to them as well, because some of the older people are just as bad as the young people when it comes to doing something. So
I just want to say this. Listen, you know, the civil rights movement. I wasn't there, but it was a small minority. There were a lot of people who did not support the civil rights movement. There were a lot of churches that would not invite King and Mahalia Jackson. And 50 years later, everybody was at the March on Washington, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think, you know, and so for those of us who are in this work, sometimes you just start with those 4 parents that show up. Y'all get a small win, and then other parents come along. But don't get discouraged by the 4. You know, church folk, you know, 4 people show up, we want to cancel the whole thing. You got to work with those 4 people.
No, that's what we did. That's what we did, Pastor. Whoever showed up, that's who we talked to. We had a workshop. If it was only 2 parents there, the speaker spoke to those 2 parents. We did not say the meeting was over with or whatever.
You know, because sometimes we get discouraged by who's not in the room, that we don't even think about the people who are.
That's in there.
Yeah.
I always look at who's there.
You have no idea how many lives you have touched.
Absolutely. How about we all also ask young people their idea on what can be done? Maybe we will start to come to a consensus between the 4 of us alone of, hey, they all said this same thing right here. And that might be something that we can use as a springboard to a new idea or a new way to live. They have to be a part.
Well, you know what, Seaon, when you have something, you can let us know. When Pastor has something over at his church,
definitely, and that could
he can let us know, because in this way we tell other people that we know that's in our circle, you know, and if something is going on, even like with feeding or anything that's going on in the church or your organization or whatever, we can just let other people know because it starts from there. Like we go to help other people with their organizations when they are doing something like that. So that way we're helping each other. Because I mean,
Church
I
is open
really
every week. Y'all
appreciate
can
you
come.
coming on. What you say, Pastor?
The church is open every week. Y'all can come. That's a part of the village, right? That's the gathering.
I know. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So we come, you know, because I just feel that, you know, that's the best way is just to try to help each other. If we know of an organization that might need help, you know, if something's going on in the church and they need extra hands or whatever, and we go over and help out. And then you also meet people and you have a chance to talk to people one-on-one. And sometimes that helps a lot too when you meet people, you talk to them one-on-one. And you really see that sometimes that they just needs a little conversation and a little hug. That's all they need is a little hug or whatever, you know. So look, I thank the two of you for coming on tonight. Oh my
Thank you
God.
so much for inviting me. I'm so honored. I'm so honored. Oh my God.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you made it, Pastor. You know, I've been trying to get you for a while.
I know.
But you're so busy.
Where did we meet? I can't remember.
We met at the funeral
For
over
who?
at Bell, Frank Bell. Wait, I'm trying to think of who funeral we was at.
I don't even remember.
Oh God, I can't remember who funeral we was at. We was over at Frank Bell, and you did the eulogy. You did the eulogy.
Oh wow.
And so when you finished, and I walked up to you and I told you, because when you did the eulogy, you did it where it was like just modern right now. It wasn't so much about the person dead, but you was talking to us about today and how we're supposed to be in our lives today. So when someone dies, we not standing there feeling so guilty because we did what we were supposed to do when they was alive. So that's why, because I always remember my pastor said when people was falling over in the casket, you falling over there because you guilty, because you didn't do what you were supposed to do when they was alive.
Take me, I want to go too. Okay, all right.
It was alive, yeah. And, you know, so I just see how, you know, I could see you as a person that, you know, that
I preach like that every week, so just come on.
they come. So I enjoyed. I'm saying I enjoyed the funeral, but I mean I enjoyed the words. I was sad about folks who were there, but it was the wording. You know what I'm saying? It was the wording.
Well, let me know when you come, and I'll make sure that I give you a shot. All right. It was nice to meet all of you, Dr. Vanessa.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
To see you again.
Yeah, because Rich Hill go to your church. Rich Hill goes to your church.
Oh yes.
Remember? I told you she goes to your church. Yes.
Absolutely. That's
I just can't remember who funeral it was. Yeah. And Seaon, thank you so much for working with the young kids, teaching them discipline through chess. I think it's wonderful that you can use that, you know, discipline by teaching them chess, because, you know, this way now they know how to start carrying themselves as they get older and older. So I thank you for all the work that you were doing as well. And look, we're gonna come back again for another discussion.
Yes.
To go on. This is not going to be the last time. So thank you. Thank everybody for staying on for the after show. And like I said, make sure you go and like our Facebook. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube. We're on every Saturday on Brick at 5:00, and we're on Manhattan at 2:30 p.m. You can see the show from there. So thanks again.
Thank
you. As always, thank you, Dr. Vanessa. And as always, we'll see you next time.
Take care.